Hello gamers around the world, I'm Sparrowkiss and I come to you from the very heart of Mordor to bring you a gamer's Gages review for Middle-earth: Shadow of War. And first of all, my opinion on the whole loot boxes and microtransactions topic in any game, especially single-player games.
Fuck you, man.
Fuck you! Yeah, that's my message to you. Fuck you and kiss my ass. And if you don't like that, fuck you.
More on that at the very end of this video. Now that I clearly stated my opinion that loot boxes are an abomination for gaming as a whole, let me proceed to review this game, trying to leave the loot boxes out and not to cloud my judgment too much by them. The main reason is that the loot boxes in Shadow of War are totally optional and in fact totally useless. Don't worry, I will talk about them, but I have hope that there is a big enough outrage on the internet that makes the publishers rethink before they try to fuck us gamers in the ass. Although, judging by the many games with loot boxes and microtransactions this winter, it's really not looking so good. Oh no. Also, be advised that I have not played Shadow of Mordor back in 2014, so I'm reviewing this game now as an individual game and not as the next installment in a series. Let's begin with graphics. And remarkably, there isn't really much to say here. The game looks good and it runs really stable. It manages to keep the targeted 30 FPS on consoles. Sure, on PC 60 FPS is a likely option, and also 4K textures if you can handle it, and overall the game looks more crisp on the master race. But surprisingly, for a fast-paced game like Shadow of War, the lower FPS rate of 30 wasn't really much of an issue, because again the frame rate was stable. It is clear what Monolith was going for: fluent, fast gameplay. Mission accomplished. Overall, the graphical performance of the game world is fairly good, with rare instances of problems. The overall environments are decent with no real weaknesses to spot. Also, some of the areas have quite a great overview, but don't expect a Horizon Zero Dawn, Witcher 3 or an Assassin's Creed. The level design is mostly well crafted, with something to climb off or to hide behind in every step you go. What stands out are the orcs and the armor in general from the main character and especially from the orcs themselves. It can look really gorgeous up close. Also, there are so many different looking orcs around there, it took me until pretty much the late endgame for me to run into orc captains that look like orcs that I have already seen before. This cannot be said about the grunts that are spread around the map, but the captains were surely made out of love here. Well done. Graphics overall, aside from the lovely bosses, there is nothing in general to get excited about, but Shadow of War is stable like a fresh built Jenga tower. Audio. This is arguably the best area of the game, yet still quite forgettable like the rest. So the soundtrack is actually fairly good. But to be honest, I have almost zero to none recollection about the music. The few instances I heard, it felt right, and it gave the right atmosphere with the battle drums, the battle horns, and also the battle chants and more battle sounds. Did I mention battle? I guess it is good enough that it sets the mood for the player subconsciously, and it seems like this is what the developers were going for. They did not really want the music to stand out too much. Let's look at the sound effects, and they are, I got to be honest with you guys, I am at a loss of words here. They are, like many aspects of the game, so average that I struggle to find a way to describe them. It is like you try to describe some ice cream that has almost no flavor whatsoever. It is not bad, but it's certainly not good. It's just there. Alright, let's look at the voiceover, and there was clearly the highest priority.
I wanted to watch the chaos unfold, but now I'll have to settle for causing a little chaos myself.
Now, the fact that orcs talk fluent English in different accents might put you off here and there, and I mean, for me, orcs don't talk like that. They don't talk like an Irishman or a guy with a slight German accent or something like that. They just don't. But okay, it's a fantasy games, and let's say orcs do exist that talk like that, and you kinda get used to it anyways. And I gotta say, the voices are great. Spot on variety in the lines that are spoken. It's really good. I am impressed. I don't think that I ever encountered an orc that started to talk to me in his monologue when you meet them, that I heard the same lines twice, except for when you die in the main mission. And here we have it again, the love from the depths for the orcs. Oh yeah, the main characters and some other side characters are also talking, and it's just fine. Nothing to complain, yet nothing really that stands out. So, audio overall has its moment that can be good and even memorable, but for the most part, just as much forgettable. Gameplay. Alright, first of all, and this is very important, Shadow of War is not an action RPG. It is not a role-playing game whatsoever. This is an action-adventure with a fairly high amount of skills that you can select. In many aspects of the game, it actually reminded me of a superhero game, like Spider-Man, and also very much like the Prototype series, or also kinda like a continuous open-world Dynasty Warriors. You know, you are a superhero in Middle-earth. In Shadow of War, you run around fighting and killing orcs, and at some point, you can brainwash them so they join your army, so you can go to war against Sauron. There are many different ways to take out your opponents, and the further you progress, the more possibilities you get. Alright, the orc armies have grunts scattered around the map that you can slay down like sheep for the most part. But there are also orc captains and their superiors, which are kinda like mini-bosses that can also become actual boss fights as well. The focus of the game is clearly on those boss fights with the captains. And those boss battles are really interesting and fun, because every captain has its own strengths and weaknesses. For example, one captain can be killed instantly by sneaking up on him, but the next captain is just immune to sneak attacks. So stealth doesn't work with him, but maybe he is weak against fire. So you use skills or weapons that might catch the captain on fire, or you use the surroundings to make them bastards burn. And that is pretty fun, to check out every orc individually and then figure out a strategy on how to kill him. And well, sometimes things can get really hard because the orc captain is, let's say, immune to fire and ice. That is pretty much all the skills that you have, and you haven't unlocked any skill with poison yet. But luckily you have a bow and arrow that can inflict poison damage. So what do? Of course you pump in a bunch of arrows inside that captain so he dies, right? Well, think again, because if you use one and the same strategy too often on the same captain, he might adapt to the situation and becomes immune to that strategy. So in our example, the captain becomes arrow-proof and arrows don't do no damage anymore. Now a new strategy is needed ASAP. Also, this is where the Nemesis system kicks in, because after you defeated a captain, they might die for good, but they may also run away, or you are going to have your reasons to let them live. Well, then you're going to meet the captain again eventually, and all the abilities he had and learned in your previous encounter, he has again. So it generally makes it tougher to kill him now. This gets even worse if one of the captains kills you. Not only do they learn to adapt to your abilities because of the fight, when a captain kills you, they rise in levels, so they get stronger overall, and they may also get new abilities entirely, making a captain that killed you even stronger and even more likely to kill you again. So you better make sure that the next time you face that enemy captain, that you kill him and hope that he stays dead. But there is also another way. As I mentioned, you can force them to join your army to fight Sauron. And why can you do that? Well, I will get to that in the story section, but you have the Bright Lord called Celebrimbor on your side and a Ring of Power. You can also use the power from both of them in the battle. That is why I said that this is more of a superhero game, because you get superpowers from a Ring of Power and an ancient undead elven Lord Ghost. So this is what happens in general. There are 5 regions in the game. Each of them are open areas where you, for the most part, can go wherever you want. every region has a fortress that has a bunch of captains defending that fortress. Now, from this pool of captains, you can go ahead and fight them and recruit the ones that you want. Basically, you can recruit each and every one of them, filling the ranks with only your own orcs. But there's literally no point in doing so. I learned that the hard way. Once you have gathered enough orcs to lead the assault on the fortress, you can do so. But of course, you can prepare by doing some missions beforehand and kill some of those special captains, so the fortress does not have so tight defenses anymore, making it easier to assault the fortress. Well, to some extent, but not really, leading to the inevitable fight against the leader of the fortress. And that's how you take the fortress. Now, you need orcs to lead the defense of the said fortress. So you go ahead and recruit some more orcs to lead the different parts of the defenses. Long story short, you get where I'm getting at, right? You run around, fight orc captains, and that is pretty much the goal of 95% of the game. The whole fortress mechanics sounds interesting, but is left pretty shallow and only scratches the surface of what it could be. The different skills, though, that you can get, they make it all interesting and tactical, and you prepare for most battles accordingly, and in general the game gets easier the further you get. Maybe even a bit too easy, and I played on the Nemesis difficulty, the highest one. I mean, the Nemesis system makes the game interesting in general because if you die, you don't only waste 5 minutes of your life like in normal games, no, you also make your opponent stronger. But that rarely happens, and I was mostly killed by random grunts anyways, and not really the captains themselves, so in the end, the Nemesis system didn't really get into play. So, gameplay overall, it is fast, it is fluent, and it works out for the most part, but still leaves much to be desired because it is so goddamn repetitive. And that brings us to entertainment. And first of all, I enjoyed Shadow of War, but the game screams average. On almost every level, it screams average. Except for the story, but unfortunately, I'm getting to that soon. Alright, it is fun to gain intel on the specific captains, and then get over to them and quickly try to come up with a strategy to take them down. And then the plan doesn't work, because he adapts to your plan or he runs away, and then he runs towards another captain that is standing there just randomly, leading you to a fight with another captain that you haven't really prepared for. Also, out of a sudden, another captain appears to ambush you, and you most certainly have not prepared for that. That is when things get really interesting, but you can just run away from every situation if you want to, regroup and then take them out one by one by finding then a way to kill them. But of course you can also try to stand your ground and take them out all by yourself at once. That's when it's really get fun, if it works out of course. And also some fights, especially with the fortress leaders, can be really tough, because there running away is not really much of an option. Then you need to find a way to survive first and then taking the captains down second. It is fun, but I had so many moments in the game where I could have just thrown my whole TV out of the window. The main reason for that are all of the random orcs scattered around the map. They always attack you and they just piss you off. Second, you can attack everything, and I mean everything. Oh man, how often did I attack a random grunt, or even worse, one of my own instead of the one orc I actually wanted to attack. The same goes for climbing. You can climb everything. Again, everything. This is cool for most situations because this gives you a lot of freedom. But I had plenty of occasions where I literally had no idea what the hell the main character was doing. It was frustrating at many times, and all those things angered me the more I progressed through the game. And I think I know why. The game takes forever. It truly does. Which would be fine if it were an actual RPG like The Elder Scrolls or The Witcher. But it isn't. The variety is mostly limited to the orc captains, and because you know kind of everything already, you've seen this one to some extent, you just want to move on to the next one. But shit happened, and it is more annoying than anything else. Even to the point that all those captains' monologues that you get when you meet those orc captains, they're not repetitive, but you are in the middle of the battle. You are in the heat of the moment, and out of a sudden, one of them decides to talk to you and you just cannot skip it. fuck me, I literally wanted to kill some people then and there. On the other hand, riding a grog or a drake and crushing, eating and burning some orcs felt really good sometimes. And this is a perfect way to describe entertainment here overall. There are some good and very enjoyable times coupled with some pretty annoying shit. But overall, any of these moments are too few for the most part of the game, leaving me after over 40 hours of gameplay with about 2 to 3 memorable moments. Leaving us with now this story. Oh my god. Alright, let's get this over with. First, the beginning. Oh my god. What a stupid and uninspiring and boring and stupid start of the story. Alright, before we begin, I keep my reviews spoiler free, but the very beginning of Shadow of War is, if I got that right, a bit of a spoiler for Shadow of Mordor, the prequel from 2014. Judging by the story here, there isn't really much to spoil at any rate anyways, but you may want to skip ahead the story section. So, Shadow of War. We once again play Talion, who is accompanied by an ancient elven spirit called Celebrimbor, and they crafted a new ring equal to the Ring of Power that Sauron has, and they did this in the last game. But they managed to lose it right away in the beginning of Shadow of War. There is no sense in that first scene whatsoever. It's just magic here and magic there, and now you get to do some stuff, and now you're in the game. What a shit start. I guess I was a bit more confused because I haven't played Shadow of Mordor, but still, it's shit. So Talion is in Mordor trying to defend a Gondorian castle from the orcs and to get the Palantir. Oh, how I hate this word. Celebrimbor is getting pretty annoying in the first hours talking about the Palantir. Anyways, the Palantir is a mighty artifact that can do stuff. I don't know what it is, it's just powerful and you must have it. But of course, everything goes to shit in the most obvious and stupid and forced and stupid way possible. So the first act is pretty shit writing. Anyway, the second act begins, and this is where the main game is settled. This is what most of the things I'm saying here in this review happens. We have story missions and quests here and there, and aside from an epic battle with the Balrog, they're pretty much forgettable all along. Leading up to the final act where it gets better story-wise, but also worse at the same time. You see, the story is settled somewhere between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. So obviously, one way or another, your war against Sauron must go to shit at some point. And the story at the end makes actually kind of sense. And I thought, well, alright, after the shit beginning, it was certainly much better in the end. But it is not so easy to come to this conclusion, because this game has pretty much two endings, a soft ending and a hard ending when the credits are actually rolling out. But to get to the real hard ending, there is hours and hours of defending and assaulting fortress with no story whatsoever. It's just an endless grinding process. Granted, they actually managed to pack a reasonable story on why Talion would do this, but in the end it seems that the only reason why they made this such a grindfest in the end is to somehow make people buy those damn loot boxes. I did it without buying any, of course, and I still don't really see much of an advantage from those loot boxes to save time. So overall, the story is disappointing. Lacking likable characters in any way, an ending that is fairly reasonable, but overall it is crap, especially the beginning, and so forgettable that I really doubt that despite what they say, it is not canon with the Legendarium. And that brings us to the verdict. And I rate my games like when a friend like you comes to me and asks, "Hey Sparrowcus, you played Shadow of War, what do you think? Should I buy this or what?" Well, to that I can say you can certainly wait for this game to get on a sale, or actually skip this one entirely because you will not miss much. So, why should you wait? Well, because the game is pretty average in every regard and it takes forever. Game time is generally a good thing, but not if it's just the same shit over and over again. It's the time before Christmas and there are games getting released every minute. And with so many games coming up during the holiday season, I recommend to either wait for the Christmas sale and play it over the days around New Year's, or to wait for summer while there are only a few games coming out. The game is a time filler, and I mean it in every sense of the word. It is a time filler. Nothing more, but also nothing less. So instead of rewatching Friends or Prison Break or whatever, you can have some fun with Shadow of War for 25 to 50 hours, most certainly. But that is also the reason why you can skip this game entirely, because the few moments that are memorable are just too few and are also just as much annoying as they are enjoyable. And as soon as the next game comes along, they get forgotten entirely again. It's mediocre. If that is enough for you, and if you like to see some orcats floating around because of some brutal kills, while you also kill some time of your own, then you can buy it, no problem. The game does nothing good in particular, but also nothing essentially wrong. Well, except for one thing. Those stupid microtransactions. Although, as I said in the story section, I don't see any reason whatsoever to buy loot boxes because A, you get plenty of gear as it is, and B, those captains that you get, well, you can recruit them yourselves, and if the whole army is full anyways, then you have to replace the ones that you already have in place, or you have to go ahead and kill some enemy captains, but then again you can also make them to join your army. So maybe I missed something there, but I don't really see any reason to buy them. And if I missed something here, then the microtransactions only make the game worse in its game design, making it a grinding fest, especially in the final third of the game. Oh right, there is also a little online component in the game. You are not really competing against any other people, it's still a single player game. This is basically an endless version of the grinding fest of the game, and as a reward you get some points for loot boxes. Oh, for fuck's sake, stupid ass loot boxes. Probably the best reason on why you should skip this game entirely, because those loot boxes are not only stupid, they're useless, and fuck you, Warner Brothers. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. This was my GAGES review on Middle-earth Shadow of War. Make sure to subscribe and to press that like button down below. Leave your thoughts on the game, this review, or microtransactions in the comments below. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.